Summer stood frozen at the door, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. Around her were 75 faces she once called family, yet not one smile met her eyes. Her father's voice thundered across the hall, demanding she sit down, but the room already felt like a courtroom. The red folder on the table looked harmless, but Summer could sense its weight. When her father opened it and said the words, "You're not ours," the air left her lungs. Her mother's hand darted forward, snatching Summer's car keys, while her sister's phone glowed red, live streaming everything to the world. But before that night of humiliation for weeks earlier, Summer was still hopeful. She had been in the ICU break room sipping lukewarm coffee when her younger sister Brianna called, sounding unusually excited. "Mom and Dad are throwing you a surprise 30th birthday party," she announced. Summer almost dropped her mug. For 30 years her parents had never thrown her a party. Not for her graduation, not for her 21st. Every celebration had always been for Brianna, the family's golden child. "Are you sure?" Summer asked carefully. "They don't really do parties for me." Brianna laughed. "That's what makes it special. Just promise to act surprised." After the call ended, Summer sat alone, her heart tugged between disbelief and cautious hope. Maybe things were changing. Maybe her parents had finally begun to see her beyond the dependable daughter who never complained. She imagined the decorations, the laughter, and her father's proud smile as he toasted her achievements. That fragile hope carried her through long night shifts, past the endless beeping of ICU monitors. She told herself this party could be a new beginning, proof that she mattered too. But beneath that hope was an unease she couldn't name, a tiny voice warning her that the Pattersons never gave without purpose. 3 days before the party, Summer received an email that nearly made her cry with joy. After 7 years of 12-hour shifts and countless emergencies, she was being considered for the charge nurse position. The only thing she needed was a letter of recommendation from someone influential. Her manager suggested her father, who had once served on the hospital's board. When she called him, Gerald sounded unusually warm. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll write it myself and give it to you at your birthday party," he promised. Summer smiled through tears, imagining that letter being handed to her in front of everyone, proof that her father finally believed in her. The night of the party arrived faster than she expected. Summer stood before her mirror, adjusting her navy blue dress, the one she bought with extra shifts. It made her feel strong and elegant. She even wrapped a small gift for her parents, a photo album filled with memories. "Tonight's going to be different," she whispered to her reflection. But when she arrived at the Grand Oak restaurant, the air felt wrong. Inside, no balloons, no laughter, just faces watching her like a spectacle. Her father's cold voice echoed, "Sit down." Summer's heart began to race. It wasn't a party. It was an ambush, and she was the only one who hadn't read the script. Her father stood tall at the center of the room, gripping a microphone like a judge holding a gavel. "Summer," he said, his tone cold and deliberate. "Do you know why we invited 75 people here tonight?" Summer forced a trembling smile. "My birthday," she replied, her voice barely audible. A bitter smirk crossed his face. "No," he said slowly. "To serve as witnesses." The crowd murmured. Chairs creaked. Confusion rippled across the room. Summer's pulse pounded in her ears as Gerald opened the red folder and held up a document for all to see. "This," he declared, "is a DNA test. And it proves you are not our biological daughter." The words hit like a physical blow. Summer stared at him, searching for any hint of a joke, any sign of mercy, but his eyes were steel. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You're not ours, Summer," her mother added sharply. "We took you in. We raised you. We gave you everything." Summer's mind spun. "What are you talking about? You're my parents." Her mother's lips twisted. "You owe us," she snapped. "For 30 years of care, food, education, and shelter." Gerald pulled another document from the folder, a printed spreadsheet with neat columns of expenses. "That totals $500,000, he said coldly. "And we expect you to repay it." Gasps filled the room. Summer gripped the arms of her chair, her breath shallow. "You're serious?" she whispered. Her father nodded. "Dead serious." Then her mother stepped forward, yanking the car keys from her purse. "This car," she said triumphantly, "belongs to us. You only have it because of your father's hospital connections. Summer shook her head in disbelief. I paid for that car myself. Every cent. Your job exists because of your father, Linda hissed. Without him you'd be nothing. Around them relatives shifted uncomfortably but no one spoke. Summer's throat tightened as the betrayal sank in. They hadn't brought her here to celebrate. They'd brought her here to destroy her. Smile for the camera, sis. The voice came from behind. Summer turned to see Brianna standing there, phone in hand, the red light blinking. She was live streaming the entire nightmare. Brianna, stop. Summer shouted. But Brianna only smirked. This is great content, she whispered. My followers are losing it. Family secrets, fake daughters, this is gold. Summer's heart sank. You're filming this? She cried. Thousands are watching. Brianna just laughed. You should thank me. You're trending. The whispers grew louder. Phones emerged. The humiliation wasn't just in this room, it was spreading across the internet. And not one person tried to stop it. Then out of the chaos, Summer noticed him, a man standing alone in the corner of the room near the exit. He didn't move or speak, just watched. He was older, maybe in his 60s, dressed in a tailored gray suit that didn't belong in a family dinner. His eyes, steady and piercing, were fixed only on her. They weren't the eyes of judgment or pity. They were eyes filled with something deeper, something familiar. Beside him stood a young woman holding a folder and whispering nervously. Who is that? Summer asked, pointing. Her father froze for a second, just long enough for fear to flicker across his face. No one, he snapped. But the man in the gray suit stepped forward and the entire room went silent. The man's voice was calm but commanding. Not yet, Gerald, he said, every word clear enough to cut through the tension. Let her finish asking her questions first. Summer looked between him and her father, trying to piece together what was happening. Who are you? She asked. Gerald's face paled. Security, he shouted. Someone get him out of here. But no one moved. The man in the gray suit remained still, his expression sorrowful. You've kept her in the dark long enough, he said softly. She deserves the truth. Murmurs rippled across the room again, relatives whispering in confusion. Summer's heartbeat thundered in her ears. What truth? She demanded. Her father looked cornered. Before Gerald could respond, Aunt Dorothy, who had been sitting quietly near the middle of the room, rose to her feet. Gerald, are you sure about this? She asked, her voice trembling. If he finds out what you did, sit down, Dorothy. Linda barked. But Dorothy didn't move. Her hands shook as she clutched her purse. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. Not after everything. Summer's eyes darted between them. What are you talking about? What did you do? Dorothy looked down at the floor. I shouldn't have said anything. Dorothy. Linda's voice was sharp with panic. Shut up. The tension in the air grew thick enough to suffocate. Gerald slammed his hand against the table. Enough, he shouted, his voice booming through the speakers. Everyone in this room will witness Summer signing this document. Tonight. He pushed a contract across the table. This is a promissory note, he said through gritted teeth. You'll repay the $500,000 over 10 years. Monthly installments. Summer stared at the paper in disbelief. You can't be serious, she said. You can't just, you'll sign it, Gerald snapped. If you don't, I'll contact your hospital tomorrow and tell them you're a fraud. That you're ungrateful, unstable, and unfit for promotion. He smiled, cold and cruel. We'll see how long your career lasts then. Summer's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. You said I'm not your biological daughter, she said slowly. Then who are my real parents? The room fell silent. Linda's jaw clenched. They're dead, she said quickly. Both of them. Car accident years ago. Summer took a step forward, eyes narrowing. That's interesting, she said. Because DNA tests require comparison samples. If they're dead, where did you get them? A hush fell over the crowd. Gerald stammered. That's not your concern. It is, Summer said firmly. You can't test my DNA without another sample to match it to. So whose DNA did you use, Dad? Gasps erupted. The logic hit like a stone dropped in water, rippling through every whispering relative. Her father's lips moved, but no words came out. Summer turned toward Brianna, who was still recording. 3 months ago, she said slowly, you said someone contacted Dad. Who was it? Brianna's eyes widened. I don't know, she stuttered. I just saw an email about a law firm. Something about an agreement ending. An agreement? Summer's voice was sharp now. What agreement? Turn that off. Linda screamed, lunging toward Brianna. But Brianna flinched back, clutching her phone. I didn't mean to say anything, she cried. Summer's pulse quickened. You did. And you just told everyone there's a secret agreement about me. The relatives looked at each other, confused and uneasy. Gerald's mask of control was cracking. The man in the gray suit stepped forward, his voice quiet but powerful. That's enough, Gerald, he said. You've done enough damage. Who are you? Summer demanded, her voice trembling. Tell me right now. The man stopped a few feet away, his eyes full of emotion. My name, he said softly, is Marcus Whitfield. The name hit Gerald like a blow. His entire body went rigid. Linda gasped, her face draining of color. No, she whispered. You can't be here. Marcus ignored her and looked straight at Summer. I'm your biological father. The room exploded, gasps, shouts, and the frantic clicking of camera phones. Summer swayed where she stood, her entire world tilting beneath her. You're lying, Gerald snapped, his voice shaking now. You're a con man, a fraud. Am I? Marcus replied calmly. Because I have every document to prove who I am. He nodded to the young woman beside him, who handed him a thick folder. Marcus laid it on the table with a heavy thud. Your parents, he said, were paid to raise Summer. Paid handsomely. That's not true. Linda cried. Marcus opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Bank statements, wire transfers, and signatures. Starting in 1996, he continued, I sent them $1,500 every month for 28 years. That totals just over $500,000. The same amount Gerald is demanding tonight. The crowd erupted again. Relatives whispered in disbelief. Uncle Robert leaned forward, his face red. Is that true, Gerald? He demanded. Gerald said nothing. Marcus handed the papers to the nearest table. You can check the signatures, he said. Every one of Linda's. Linda's knees buckled. You don't understand, she pleaded. We had to take her. It was part of the deal. The deal? Marcus asked coldly. You mean the agreement that said I couldn't contact my daughter until she turned 30? He looked at Summer, his voice breaking. I agreed because I believed they'd love you. I believed you'd be cared for. I never imagined they'd use you like this. Linda covered her face, sobbing. We raised her. We gave her a home. Marcus's voice sharpened. You raised her with my money. You raised her under lies. And now you dare to demand repayment. Summer stood motionless, tears filling her eyes. Is this true? She whispered. Her mother didn't answer. You knew all along? She asked again, louder this time. Linda's silence was answer enough. Summer's hands curled into fists. You let me believe I was unwanted, she said quietly. You let me live 30 years thinking I didn't matter, while taking money from the man who did want me. Her voice trembled but did not break. You didn't adopt me out of love. You did it for profit. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn envelope, its edges yellowed with age. Your mother, Catherine, he said gently, wanted you to have this when you were old enough to understand. He handed it to her with shaking hands. Summer opened it carefully. Inside was a letter written in delicate handwriting. My dearest Summer, it began. If you're reading this, I am no longer with you. But please know you were never unwanted. You were the greatest gift of my life. Your father loved you and so did I. Summer's tears fell freely now. The letter ended with a line that broke her completely. Be kind, be strong, and know that wherever I am, I'm watching over you. For a long moment no one spoke. The air felt heavy with disbelief. Summer clutched the letter against her chest, her tears falling freely. Around her, whispers rippled through the crowd, some in pity, some in shock. Marcus looked at her gently. I wanted to be there, he said softly. But they made me promise to stay away until you turned 30. I thought I was protecting you. Summer's voice was barely a whisper. You mean, they knew you were alive? Marcus nodded, pain flickering across his face. They told you I was dead to keep you from looking for me. Gerald's face tightened, veins pulsing at his temple. That's enough, he barked. But the damage was already done. Aunt Dorothy stepped forward again, clutching a stack of crumpled papers she'd pulled from her purse. I still have them, she said, her voice trembling. The receipts Linda told me to burn 20 years ago. Linda gasped, her face ashen. You promised me, Dorothy. I couldn't do it, Dorothy cried. Every month Marcus sent those payments. You told me it was life insurance money, but I found his name on one of the transfers. I confronted you and you threatened me. The room fell into stunned silence. Summer stared at the woman she'd called mother for 3 decades, her heart breaking. You lied about everything, she whispered. Even my birth, even who I am. Linda's tears came fast now, but there was no remorse behind them, only fear. We did what we had to, she screamed. You think raising someone else's child is easy? We gave up everything for you. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. You were paid every month for nearly 3 decades, he said coldly. You didn't give up anything. You were compensated to keep her from knowing the truth. Summer took a slow breath, her voice steady but sharp. You didn't want $500,000 from me, she said. You wanted to silence me before he showed up. You wanted to erase me before I found out what you did. Her words echoed through the room like a verdict. Gerald tried one last time to regain control. Summer, please, he said, his voice trembling between authority and desperation. We're still your family. We made mistakes, but we love you. Summer turned to him, her eyes cold. Family doesn't humiliate you in public. Family doesn't demand money for love. Brianna lowered her phone at last, realizing her live stream had captured everything. The chat exploded with comments flooding the screen. This poor girl, what monsters, is this even real? Marcus stepped beside Summer, his presence steady. You don't have to stay here, he said quietly. You can walk out that door right now. Summer hesitated only for a second before nodding. As she turned to leave, Linda stepped forward, blocking her path. You can't just walk away, she snapped. You owe us for everything. Summer met her eyes, her voice calm and final. No, I don't owe you anything. You've already been paid. She stepped past her mother's outstretched hand and walked toward the door. Summer! Gerald shouted. Don't you dare walk away from this family. She didn't turn back. You're not my family, she said softly. You're just the people who took money to raise me. Then she pushed the doors open and walked out into the night, her heels clicking against the marble like closing chapters. The silence that followed was suffocating. For a few seconds no one in the room moved. Then slowly the whispers began again. Did he say they were paid? For 28 years? She had no idea. Aunt Dorothy quietly gathered her things and slipped out a side door, tears streaming down her cheeks. Marcus followed shortly after, leaving the Pattersons to face their crowd of witnesses. When the door closed behind them, Gerald turned on Linda. You lied to me, he shouted. You told me the money stopped years ago. I was protecting us, Linda cried. Protecting this family. By hiding money. By staging this circus. Gerald's voice cracked into a roar. The relatives scattered. Some whispered apologies to each other. Others avoided eye contact altogether. Uncle Robert tried to calm Gerald down and was shoved back into a chair for his trouble. Brianna stood in the corner, frozen, staring at her phone as notifications exploded. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of comments, all condemning her. You filmed your sister's humiliation? One comment read. What kind of person does that? Her follower count was dropping by the second. This is all your fault. Gerald yelled at her. Brianna looked up, her voice shaking. You told me it was going to be a family announcement. You said it would make us look strong. By the next morning, the internet had torn the Pattersons apart. Clips from Brianna's live stream went viral on every platform. Titles like Parents Humiliate Daughter Over DNA Test and Family Drama Gone Wrong flooded feeds. Comment sections overflowed with outrage and disbelief. The hospital board revoked Gerald's honorary status. Sponsors dropped Brianna overnight. Within a week, the Pattersons' perfect image was shattered. Meanwhile, Summer stayed silent. She didn't post. She didn't respond to interview requests. She didn't even check her phone. She spent 3 days in her small apartment, reading her mother Catherine's letter over and over, memorizing every word until the paper felt like part of her heartbeat. On the 4th day, Marcus called. Can we meet? he asked gently. Summer hesitated. I don't know if I'm ready, she said. That's okay, he replied. I'll wait. A week later they met at a quiet coffee shop. The place was old, the kind of spot where the furniture didn't match and the espresso machine hissed like it was tired of living. Your mother and I used to come here, Marcus said with a faint smile. Before everything fell apart. Summer traced the rim of her mug, unsure how to look at him. Why didn't you fight harder for me? She finally asked. His smile faded. Because Catherine begged me not to. She was sick and scared. I thought I was doing what she wanted. They sat in silence for a long time, both unsure where to begin. I don't know how to have a father, Summer admitted quietly. Marcus reached across the table, his hand trembling as he covered hers. That's okay, he said softly. I don't know how to be one either. But I'd like to try. Summer looked up, meeting his eyes, her own eyes mirrored back at her. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. That moment didn't erase 30 years of pain, but it planted something new, trust, fragile but real. For the first time in her life, Summer wasn't chasing someone's love. Someone was offering it freely. 3 months later, Summer signed the lease for her own apartment. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, creaky floors, windows that stuck when it rained, but it was hers. She paid every penny from her own savings. Marcus offered to help with the down payment, but she refused. I need to do this myself, she told him. He smiled. I understand. Still, he showed up on moving day, toolbox in hand, and spent 6 hours assembling furniture. You know, Summer laughed as a bookshelf tilted sideways, you're terrible at this. Marcus chuckled. That makes 2 of us. When they finished, she placed a framed photo of Catherine on the shelf. It leaned slightly, but it was perfect. At work things changed too. Dr. Chin, her supervisor, called her into the office a few weeks after the incident. Gerald Patterson contacted us, she said bluntly. He tried to have you fired. Summer's stomach dropped. Of course he did, she muttered. But Dr. Chin smiled. He sent us the live stream as evidence. I watched it. Summer tensed. And I saw a woman who stayed calm under public humiliation, Dr. Chin said proudly. That's the kind of strength I want in a charge nurse. Summer blinked. You're promoting me? Dr. Chin nodded. Congratulations. You earned it. For the first time, Summer walked out of that hospital feeling seen, not by her family but by her own merit. Dorothy called a month later. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. I just wanted to check on you, she said. Gerald and Linda, they're getting divorced. Summer didn't feel surprise, only quiet relief. I figured they would, she replied. He found out she was hiding money for years, Dorothy continued. Secret accounts, hidden credit cards, everything. Summer sighed. I guess lies have a way of catching up. Dorothy paused. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner, she said. I was scared. Summer smiled faintly. You're speaking up now. That's what matters. They talked for another hour, not as aunt and niece, but as 2 women who had finally stopped protecting the wrong people. Summer and Marcus developed a rhythm. Coffee every Sunday at the same cafe, the same corner table where her mother once laughed. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they didn't need to. He told her stories about Catherine, how she loved sunflowers, how she hummed when she cooked, how she'd whispered Summer's name in her sleep after giving birth. Each story painted a picture of a mother Summer never knew but finally understood. You have her kindness, Marcus said one day. And her strength. Summer smiled softly. Maybe that's why I survived them. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled, both knowing that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about becoming whole again. Looking back, Summer realized the party that was meant to break her had instead rebuilt her. The lies that once defined her no longer held power. She had found her truth, her voice, her peace. Gerald and Linda had given her 30 years of pain, but Marcus had given her something better. Freedom. Do you ever wish it had all happened differently? Marcus asked one Sunday. Summer looked out the cafe window, sunlight spilling across her coffee cup. No, she said finally. Because if it had, I might never have learned to walk away. She smiled gently. They tried to destroy me, but they set me free. And for the first time in her life she truly believed it.